And so we have this month left, all of August. At the end of August is when we're going to wrap up Milestone 3. And to your question, what are the DEADROP gamers going to expect? They could still expect new builds every week with changes. They could still expect the same amount of communication and transparency that we're giving them. And at the end of August, that's where we're going to be looking at, okay, this is how far we've got. And then we'll have September and October and November, because we want to have early access out in November. So early September is when we're really going to be looking at, okay, what are the things that we really need to take put some spit shine on and really make sure that's plussed up and looking good for November. And we're going to have those hard conversations with the team. And all along the way, we're going to keep our community involved so they know what's going through our head.
Well, there you have it. It's a good time to be informed on all things DEADROP, and I'm here to deliver some awesome news. If you're not familiar with who that was, that is Quinn Del Hoyo, one of 3 co-founders and creative director of Midnight Society. Quinn has a rich history with games like Halo Infinite and Gears of War, and he's been with Midnight Society from the start. Late last week, an interview dropped from Decrypt Media where Quinn discussed several things like the Dr. Disrespect departure and what that meant for the studio, as well as what the community can expect over the next year. I'm not going to go over everything that Quinn talked about because there's a lot of stuff packed in there. I think it's a great interview. Head on over to Decrypt's YouTube. You can watch it. I'll have it linked below. Highly recommend you watch the full thing. But there's a couple things that he said in there that I do want to dial into because it's a really good discussion. The first of which is the early access release date as well as the full release date. Previously, we already knew that Midnight Society was aiming for a Q4 early access release, but thanks to Quinn, we now know what month, and that's November. As of the time of this video, that is just a short 3 months away. It's crazy to me that in such a short amount of time, we're already at early access release. We just passed 2 years since DEADROP was revealed worldwide through the closed founders event that I went to back in July of 2022, and now just 2 years and a few months later, we'll be dropping into the tower together. Now, regarding the full release of the game, Quinn mentions in the interview that we're looking at fall of 2025. You know, I've seen a lot of speculation online and in the community about what year we would see DEADROP finally release, and now we have our answer. And now you may be wondering what's going to be in the early access release of DEADROP. Well, let's chat about that.
We do want to release something in the later half of 2024, but that something would not be anywhere close to what I would consider a full release, right? But what we do want it to have is we want it to have polished, fully arted, ready for public consumption foundation of the entire game, right? And we want that out on every platform that the game will eventually be on. That means, you know, the next gen consoles with Xbox Series X, hopefully optimized to the point of Xbox Series S, PS5, and then PC.
Since this AMA from Rob back at the beginning of the year, we haven't had any official information from Midnight Society regarding what's going to be in the early access release. We know that obviously console verification has been a top priority for the studio. Since the AMA, we already know that they have been accepted as official PlayStation and Xbox partners. This news came to us back in spring of this year, so I can only assume that they've made significant progress since then. I personally believe that at some point during early access, we're going to see DEADROP come to consoles, but I don't know if it's going to happen right at launch. You know, that's just 3 months away, but I'm thinking maybe shortly after. I hope I'm wrong, though. I hope it's right at launch. Rob also mentions that the goal is for the game to be fully arted. Now, I don't know what the hoops are that you have to jump through in order to become verified on consoles, but I'm sure they're pretty strenuous. I could be totally wrong here, but I've never seen a game on console that was in a blocked out state. I imagine that Microsoft and Sony want the game as polished as it can be. With that said, based on what Rob said, I think we can expect DEADROP to be fully arted at the early access launch. And just a reminder, the art director for Midnight Society, Darren Bacon, has an incredible resume of games that he's worked on. Halo Infinite, Halo 5, and Destiny are the big ones. Each of those games have gorgeous, unique settings with incredible visuals, and I have no doubt that DEADROP will be any different. Also, DEADROP is being built on Unreal Engine 5, and some of these games that are coming out on UE5 look absolutely insane. The one game that comes to mind for me as of here lately is Delta Force Hawk Ops. That game looks gorgeous. Now, one of the features of DEADROP that's been highly requested is the Hideout. If you're familiar with extraction shooters, this is where players will be able to equip their loadouts, build out their space, and collaborate with their teams before jumping into a match. We've been able to jump into this area in the Founders Test here recently, but I want you to listen closely to what Quinn has to say about it.
Like we've got the player hideout where players are, and in between their matches, or they're checking out their loot and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of features that we're trying to put in there to make it more robust of an experience where players want to be in there. And so something that we're doing that is newer than previous builds that players have played is that it's an actual 3D space. And we saw a little bit of that in the very first snapshot in July of 2022. And so we're talking, how do we bring that space back? And we're still trying to figure out the plans on when we can do that. But what we are planning for November is a brand new interior space that players haven't seen before. And we're also implementing things like third-person camera. We want players to be able to look at their character, their cosmetics, all the things that players really care about. So that's one of the areas that is like, okay, this is a lot of new, and we're building that and putting that in.
The first big thing that he says here is that they're still working on the plans on when they can bring the hideout back, meaning I'm not so sure that it'll be there for launch. I would expect this to come down the road, but we'll just have to wait and see. Another thing that he mentions is a brand new interior space that players have never seen before. Now, unless Midnight Society has something else up their sleeve, the only thing that comes to mind is the garage. If you're familiar with DEADROP, you may have seen vehicle gameplay at some point. This is currently called the Midnight Ride, and that involves players racing to the tower to claim not only their spawning POI, but also players are trying to get there before anyone else so they can get good positioning and loot up as much as they can. As you know already, this game is actively in development, so literally anything can change at this point, but I'm going to assume that we will have a space to store and view our vehicles for the Midnight Ride. Hopefully we get more news on this mysterious space soon. The last thing that I'll talk about is what Quinn talks about in regards to what we can expect over the next year as they work towards a full release.
Over the next year, just speaking of our roadmap, our plan is to ship the fully featured game in fall of 2025. So over the next coming year, you could expect, again, transparency with our players, and they'll be able to see how we're tracking, how we're trending, engaging them. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? But what am I most excited for that's separate from that? Because I do love that. But what I'm most excited for is more of our environments, more of our maps. Because when I really think about one of the big differentiators in DEADROP is, again, the verticality of it and our maps, the environments that the players are going to be playing in. So for me, over the course of the next year, what I'm most excited about is giving our players and letting them see more of what we're planning in this giant tower, this mega structure that we call the refiner state. There's going to be a bunch of maps within that, and we're going to be adding more over time. So over the course of the next year, that's what excites me the most is the different maps, how they're going to play, and the visuals of those maps.
So during the early access phase, we're going to see more maps and more environments get released over time. And I don't know about you guys, but more maps, more environments, more visuals, man, that all sounds great to me. Here lately, we've been seeing Delta Force in their alpha state drop maps, drop operators throughout an alpha space. And I think that during this early access phase, we're probably going to get used to a little bit of live service within the DEADROP space. I don't know, though, these games that have been live service in the last few years just make me angry. But I have no doubt that the guys over at Midnight Society have a good plan over the next year. All right, well, I'm going to leave the conversation there. I just wanted to really dial into early access release because it's approaching so quickly, guys. It's 3 months away. That's insane to me. But I highly encourage you to go watch Decrypt Media's full interview with Quinn. There's a lot of good stuff in there. I think it's just under a half an hour. It's a really good listen. Plus, you get to listen to Quinn's silky smooth voice. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm jealous. I wish I had that voice. But yeah, Quinn talks about a lot of good stuff in there. Please go watch the whole thing. It's totally worth it. In the meantime, while we wait on early access, tell me what you're most excited about. For me, it's definitely the art. I'm such a big Darren Bacon fan that I'm excited to see what he's got cooking up. But that's gonna do it for me today. I'll see you guys on the next one.